September 1st is when my health issue happened.
But, oh my God, for me, it was the worst moment ever.
Triple H was the powerhouse of wrestling, driven, dominant, and destined for greatness. But behind the muscle and medals was a man slowly breaking under the weight of legacy, loss, and loyalty. When his body began to fail, everything he built started to crumble. What happened next changed his life forever. Let's get into the details. The breaking point, when success came at a deadly cost. Paul Michael Levesque, better known to millions around the world as Triple H, was born on July 27, 1969, in the modest town of Nashua, New Hampshire. His family background, rooted in French-Canadian heritage, was unmarred by significant tragedy or hardship, providing a supportive environment that allowed him to pursue athletic interests from a young age. Unlike many of his wrestling contemporaries who emerged from broken homes and adversity, Triple H's early life read like the American dream incarnate. Attending Nashua High School South, where he participated in baseball and basketball, Levesque's childhood was typical for the era, focused on school, sports, and emerging hobbies rather than adversity. But destiny, it seems, had other plans for this future wrestling icon. The seeds of his passion were planted early when, around age 5, he watched a televised match featuring Chief Jay Strongbow, though he later cited Ric Flair as his primary idol for Flair's charisma and in-ring prowess. This childhood fascination evolved into something much more profound, a burning desire to emulate the larger-than-life characters he witnessed on television.
And he's like, yes, go right now. And I'm like, for the love of God, right?
This fandom evolved into a personal drive to emulate wrestlers' physiques, prompting him to begin bodybuilding at age 14. By his late teens, the transformation was remarkable. Graduating high school in 1987 and winning the Teenage Mr. New Hampshire bodybuilding competition in 1988 at age 19, young Paul Levesque had already begun forging the physique that would one day make him a wrestling superstar. Working as a manager at Gold's Gym in Nashua, fate intervened in the most unexpected way. He crossed paths with Ted Arcidi, a world record powerlifter and former wrestler who had a brief stint in WWF. This encounter would prove to be the catalyst that launched 1,000 dreams and, ultimately, 1,000 nightmares. Arcidi's mentorship was crucial. Not only did he encourage Levesque's wrestling aspirations, but he also provided the golden key that would unlock his future, an introduction to the legendary trainer Walter Killer Kowalski. The transition from aspiring bodybuilder to professional wrestler wasn't immediate, but it was methodical. Levesque made his professional debut on March 24, 1992, under the ring name Terra Rising in Kowalski's International Wrestling Federation, defeating Tony Roy in his first match. Success came quickly, perhaps too quickly for someone so young and ambitious. Managed by John Rodeo, he captured the IWF Heavyweight Championship in July 1992 by defeating Mad Dog Richard, establishing himself on the East Coast independent circuit. But these early victories were merely the opening act of a much larger drama. The world of professional wrestling, with its grueling physical demands and cutthroat politics, was about to exact a toll that no amount of preparation could have anticipated. The young man who had once dreamed of athletic glory was about to discover that in wrestling, success and suffering often walk hand in hand.
There's not one match that I ever watched of Triple H's with anybody that I ever thought was like, oh, that's a great match. Or
the criticism would come later, but the physical destruction began almost immediately upon reaching the highest levels of professional wrestling. The first major catastrophe struck with the brutal precision of a sledgehammer to the soul. It was May 21, 2001, during what should have been a routine tag team match on Monday Night Raw. Teaming with Stone Cold Steve Austin against Chris Jericho and Chris Benoit, Triple H attempted to break up Jericho's walls of Jericho's submission hold. The move he had performed countless times before would become the moment that changed everything. As he planted his left leg to execute the break, the unthinkable happened. His quadriceps muscle tore completely off the bone, rolling up toward his hip. The pain was immediate and excruciating, a sensation that no athlete should ever have to endure. Yet what happened next would become the stuff of wrestling legend, a testament to both his incredible toughness and the cruel demands of the business he loved. Despite the fact that he couldn't bear weight on the leg, he finished the match, enduring another submission hold and even delivering a sledgehammer shot. Chris Jericho, who witnessed this display of superhuman determination firsthand, would later call it one of the gutsiest performances he'd ever witnessed. But the true cost of this heroic act was yet to be fully understood. The surgery that followed was performed by the renowned Dr. James Andrews, But even this expert medical intervention came with a devastating prognosis. Doctors warned that no athlete in a contact sport had fully recovered from such an injury. Think about that for a moment. The very medical professionals tasked with putting him back together were essentially telling him that his career might be over before he had even reached his peak. The rehabilitation process was nothing short of hellish. Triple H spent 8 months in rehabilitation in Birmingham, Alabama, isolated in a hotel, pushing through daily therapy with specialist Kevin Wilk. Picture the psychological torture of this situation. A man at the absolute pinnacle of his profession, suddenly reduced to the basic act of learning how to walk properly again, alone in a sterile hotel room thousands of miles from home.
And then they'll be like, no, 'cause I saw that one. I was there. And I know that he did one thing that pissed the other guy off, and then it got real for a second with those two.
The professional cost was equally devastating. He missed the pivotal Invasion storyline involving WCW and ECW talent, a professional setback that compounded the physical agony. This wasn't just about missing a few matches. This was about being absent from one of the most significant storylines in wrestling history, watching from the sidelines as his peers and rivals captured the spotlight that should have been his. But if you think this was the end of Triple H's battle with devastating injuries, you're tragically mistaken. What followed was a pattern of physical destruction that would repeat itself with clockwork precision, each incident more terrifying than the last. This was only the beginning of a journey that would test not just his physical limits, but his very will to survive. The Angel of Death visits the ring, near-fatal encounters, and emotional devastation. Just when Triple H had clawed his way back from the brink of career extinction, when he had defied medical expectations and returned to reclaim his position at the top of the wrestling world, fate delivered another crushing blow that would make his previous injury pale in comparison. This time, it wasn't just his career on the line, it was his very life. The date was November 17th, 2002, and the setting was the inaugural Elimination Chamber match at Survivor Series. This new match type was designed to be the ultimate test of endurance and brutality, but no one could have predicted just how literal that description would become. Rob Van Dam, leaping from a pod for a 5-star frog splash, accidentally drove his knee into Triple H's throat. In that split second, what should have been a spectacular athletic maneuver became a potential death sentence. The impact was catastrophic. The blow caused immediate swelling, reducing his airway from a normal diameter to a fraction, making breathing and speaking nearly impossible. Imagine the terror of feeling your throat closing, of knowing that each breath might be your last, all while maintaining the facade of a professional wrestler who must continue performing regardless of the circumstances. He signaled distress by kicking the mat furiously, but powered through to the end, bloodied and gasping. The audience witnessed a man literally fighting for his life, while still adhering to the sacred code of professional wrestling. The show must go on. But behind the scenes, the medical team was dealing with a nightmare scenario that could have ended in tragedy on live television. Hospitalized overnight, doctors monitored for a potential complete airway closure or torn trachea, which could have been fatal. Picture the agony of lying in a hospital bed, every breath a conscious effort, knowing that if the swelling progressed just a little more, it could all be over. Triple H credited his muscular neck for mitigating worse damage, but the incident highlighted wrestling's high-risk nature. It could have ended in tragedy if swelling progressed unchecked. The psychological impact of these near-death experiences began to compound. Here was a man who had already endured months of grueling rehabilitation, who had defied medical odds to return to his passion, only to face an even more terrifying reminder of his mortality. Yet somehow, incredibly, he returned after about 10 days, holding no grudge against Van Dam, viewing it as an occupational hazard. But the wrestling gods, it seemed, were not finished with their cruel games. The pattern of devastating injuries continued with ruthless precision. January 7th, 2007, at New Year's Revolution, Triple H tore his right quadriceps in a match against Rated RKO, Edge, and Randy Orton. Lightning had struck twice in the same horrific way, but this time the emotional toll was even more severe. Similar to 2001, the muscle detached at the kneecap during a routine move, forcing improvisation as the match descended into chaos. Once again, displaying the kind of superhuman determination that bordered on madness, he executed 2 pedigrees, one on the announce table post-match, despite the injury. The human cost of this incident extended far beyond Triple H himself. Backstage, his wife Stephanie McMahon collapsed in distress, shrieking as if witnessing a death. Can you imagine the trauma of watching the person you love most in the world destroy themselves for the entertainment of others? The woman who had married into wrestling royalty was learning firsthand that the crown came with a terrible price. Recovery took 7 months, again under Dr. Andrews, with Triple H focusing on a deliberate rehab to return stronger. But each comeback was becoming harder, not just physically, but mentally. The cumulative effect of these injuries was creating a pattern that seemed destined to continue until something gave way permanently. The physical destruction continued to mount. A later injury in 2018 at Crown Jewel, a pectoral muscle tear during a tag match with Shawn Michaels against The Undertaker and Kane, further emphasized this toll. It was becoming clear that Triple H's body was breaking down under the relentless pressure of his chosen profession. But the physical injuries were only part of a much larger tapestry of tragedy that was weaving itself around Triple H's life. The emotional devastation that accompanied his professional struggles added layers of complexity to his suffering that went far beyond anything that could be healed with surgery or physical therapy. The most profound emotional blow came in the form of a loss that would haunt him for years to come. Chyna, Joanie Laurer, died on April 20th, 2016, at age 46 from an accidental drug overdose. This wasn't just the death of a colleague or a casual acquaintance. This was the woman he had loved, the person who had stood by his side during some of the most formative years of his career. Their relationship from 1996 to 2000 was both professional and intimate, starting as an on-screen storyline. Chyna wasn't just Triple H's girlfriend, she was his partner in every sense of the word. A revolutionary force in women's wrestling who broke barriers and challenged conventions alongside him in D-Generation X. The end of their relationship had been acrimonious and public. Their breakup was amid rumors of his involvement with Stephanie McMahon, whom he began dating in 2000 and married in 2003. The wrestling world had watched this personal drama unfold in real time, with accusations and counter-accusations flying in interviews and autobiography chapters.
How'd you catch him?
I found a note, actually. Yeah, I found a note.
Like a written note?
A written note
What did it say?
from Stephanie from State of the Year, like tucked away in his briefcase.
What the note
Yeah,
say?
what was in the note?
But just a note from her saying, you know, how much she loved him, and she was on the airplane or something writing him a love note. And
The pain of Chyna's allegations about finding love notes from Stephanie in Triple H's briefcase, dated a year earlier, had created a wound that never fully healed. When she passed away, Triple H paid heartfelt tributes, calling her a pioneer and expressing shock while on WWE's European tour. He acknowledged their complex history, but emphasized her trailblazing role, leading to her posthumous Hall of Fame induction with D-Generation X in 2019. But behind the public statements and professional tributes was a man grappling with grief, guilt, and the weight of unresolved emotions. The losses continued to mount as his peer group began to fall victim to the harsh realities of the wrestling business. The 2023 death of Bray Wyatt, Wyndham Rotunda, at 36 from a heart attack, elicited public mourning from Triple H, who called it heartbreaking. Each death served as another reminder of the fragility of life in a business built on the illusion of invincibility.
I never ever wanted to wrestle him.
Even the criticism from his peers began to take on a more poignant meaning when viewed through the lens of his mounting tragedies.
I wrestled him a couple of times. He was always trying to beat me.
But none of these tragedies, not the career-threatening injuries, not the personal losses, not the accumulated trauma of decades in the ring, could have prepared Triple H for what was coming next. The ultimate test was still ahead, and it would make everything that came before seem like mere preparation for the fight of his life. The final countdown, when death came knocking. If you thought the previous chapters of Triple H's tragic story were the climax of his suffering, you were gravely mistaken. The universe, it seemed, had been saving its cruelest blow for last, a test that would strip away every illusion of invincibility and force a man who had built his identity on physical dominance to confront the ultimate equalizer, his own mortality. September 1st, 2021, a date that would forever be etched in Triple H's memory as the day his world collapsed. What began as a seemingly routine case of feeling feeling under the weather after a grueling schedule would quickly escalate into a medical emergency that brought him face to face with death itself.
September of 2021.
September 1st is when my health issue happened.
Triple H had been running his normal schedule, with a 10-day run between SummerSlam from Orlando to Vegas and Las Vegas to LA and back, all over the place. The demands of his position as both an in-ring performer and executive had pushed his body to its absolute limits.
When we came back in at the end, I was in Orlando for television for NXT, and the last couple of days that I was there, I was getting run down and sick.
Initially, the symptoms seemed manageable, the kind of exhaustion and illness that comes with a punishing travel schedule.
So when I flew home, I went to get tested for COVID because I certainly didn't want to bring that home to my kids, even though I'd been vaccinated and even though I'd had it and everything else, I didn't want to bring that home to my kids, and I didn't have it.
The test came back negative, but what doctors found instead was arguably worse.
They said I had viral pneumonia. And, you know, I was super congested, but I was exhausted.
What Triple H didn't know was that this seemingly ordinary illness was about to trigger a cascade of events that would threaten to end not just his career, but his life.
My doctor kept a very close eye on it and was like, man, there's, you know, your heart rate's elevated. There's certain things going on here.
Then came the moment that changed everything.
There's a certain point in time where I'm coughing stuff up. My wife sees it. She sees a little bit of blood in there. She's like, I don't like that.
The sight of blood in his cough was the alarm bell that couldn't be ignored.
We go get chest x-rays, and I'm generalizing here a lot of this, but we go get chest x-rays. I go in for EKGs and all this other stuff, and then...
But even as the medical machinery began to whir around him, Triple H had no idea how dire his situation had become. The phone call that shattered his world came without warning.
One day after I get a bunch of tests done, I get home and I get a call. That's my doctor, and he says, hey, plans on the ground have changed. I need you to put a few things into a bag. Don't waste time. I need you to drive to Yale.
The casual tone of the doctor's voice couldn't mask the urgency of the situation. When Triple H asked why he couldn't just go to the closer Greenwich hospital.
What you have going on is pretty serious. If you go to Greenwich, they're gonna transfer you to Yale. They have a better department there. That's where you need to be. Go now. Don't waste time.
The words that followed would haunt Triple H forever.
What is going on? He goes, you're in heart failure.
Wow.
And I'm like, I'm in heart failure.
The drive to Yale New Haven Hospital must have felt like a journey to the underworld.
Are you freaking out right now?
I am, but it's almost surreal. I'm
right.
Heart failure. Yeah,
Is she freaking out?
She's scared, but like I'm in good shape. I eat healthy. I eat clean. Like I don't eat crap. I don't drink. I don't smoke. I don't anything. Like I'm about as crystal clean as you can get, right?
How could someone so physically pristine be facing heart failure? The situation deteriorated with terrifying speed.
And when I get the first test back, my ejection fracture is at 22. And they're like, holy cow, like you're cascading quickly here. We got to find out what's going on.
But the worst was yet to come.
In the morning, they do a ultrasound, a bunch of other stuff. They basically come back and say, your ejection fracture is now 12. We need to go now. Like, so I'm like 1 yard lining it.
To put this in perspective, a normal ejection fraction ranges from 55–65%. Anything below 40% indicates heart failure, and at 12%, survival without intervention is slim. The medical team discovered the source of the crisis.
I have a blockage in my what they call the Widowmaker, 99%.
This was attributed to a genetic issue with his ejection fraction, a measure of heart pumping efficiency, plummeting to 12%.
Like, and they were like, dude, you're lucky that you didn't like throw any kind of clot or anything with all the traveling and the flying and everything else that you do. If you would have thrown a clot, that would have been it. You'd have never seen it coming. You would have just fell over and, you know, all that stuff.
The surgery to save his life was a nightmare of complications. The procedure to install an implantable cardioverter defibrillator was complicated. Initial attempts lasted 7.5 and 8 hours each, but failed due to Levesque's dense vascular tissue, a byproduct of decades of intense physical training. The very muscles that had made him a wrestling icon were now working against the doctors trying to save his life. The ordeal was far from over.
I said, well, okay, that's what you got to do. I go in the next day, 8 hours of surgery. Next day, same issues. First one still doesn't work.
The psychological trauma of this experience cannot be overstated.
Could I ask, and I almost hate asking you this question, at any point were you afraid of dying?
The whole time, yeah.
In interviews, he became visibly emotional, his voice cracking as he admitted to fearing death. "I was afraid of dying." He described surreal moments under anesthesia, wondering if he would wake up, and likened his brush with mortality to being at the 1-yard line of the end. The implications for his career were immediate and final. The ICD's presence rendered in-ring competition unsafe, as any impact could trigger a shock. Levesque humorously noted the risk of being zapped on live TV. On March 25, 2022, he announced his retirement on ESPN's First Take with Stephen A. Smith, stating plainly, "I will never wrestle again."
Would never wrestle again, which a lot of people ask me about. Was I upset about that? Answer is no.
But perhaps the most profound impact was on his perspective on life itself.
I get emotional thinking about it. In some way, it's a gift to look at your life through those eyes. If they tell you you're going to die on Tuesday, no one is going to go, "Well, shit, I have a board meeting on Friday." Right? It's irrelevant.
He reframed it positively as a gift, heightening his appreciation for everyday joys.
It's a gift to be able to look at that differently, through a different lens, through different eyes, to say, no, these are the things that are important to me. I'm going to put that first at all times.
This shift was evident in his recovery priorities. He stepped back from WWE duties to focus on family, picking up his daughters from school daily and savoring simple moments. The man who had survived quad tears, throat crushings, and a lifetime of physical punishment had finally met his match. But in facing down death itself, Triple H discovered something that all his championships and accolades had never given him: a true understanding of what really matters in life. The tragic fate of Triple H wasn't just about the end of a wrestling career. It was about the birth of a man who finally understood that the greatest victory isn't in the ring, but in simply being alive to fight another day. If you enjoyed watching this video, then go ahead and click on any of the cards on your screen for more.